Yeah.
Because we had a different opener.
Mm.
And now
Okay.
we're like retooling because of what's going on over there.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's Afghanistan's moving quick, man. Like,
Yeah, what's your take on that? Because you've been there.
yeah, my dad he just left. Like, he was there.
When?
Like 2 to 3 days, like a couple days ago.
So what was that
So
journey like?
Oh my God, his story was wild. So he's an engineer and he's like this project manager at this historical restoration site, like preservation site of this old 19th century armory in Kabul. So Kabul falls, like leading up to it, like a few days before, I called him. I was like, "Hey man, all these cities are falling one by one. Like, are you gonna leave?" And he was like, I'll wait 2 more weeks. And I'm like, I don't know, man. He was like, nah, we'll feel it out. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just book your ticket now, like for next week, and we'll just play it by ear. So I'm trying to find a ticket out for him, like in a week or so, and all the like domestic airlines, the Afghan airlines, are all sold out for the entire month. I'm looking at internet, and usually it's like a $200 flight to Dubai from Kabul. It's a 2-hour flight. So I'm looking at all these other international airlines, Qatar Air, Turkish Airlines, Dubai, like all these airlines are like jacked up their prices from like 200 to like 2,000. So I'm like, God damn. So I finally found him a flight to like India, and I was like, all right. And then from there you can fly to Dubai, and we'll get you a flight home. And this was like a week prior, and all their cities just kept falling in Afghanistan day by day. And just unexpectedly on Sunday, the president stepped down, fled, and the whole country now is run by the Taliban. So everyone's like in panic mode. My dad's like, there's insane traffic. He was like, so I had to like walk. So he lives within the compound, within like the base of the construction site. He was like, I walked from there all the way to like our living quarters, which is like 5 miles down, whatever. And he was like, yeah, I packed up. They got us like a UN charter flight out with the U.S. Embassy and whatnot. And he was like, we had a UN charter flight scheduled to leave Kabul that same day that the Taliban took over at midnight. So he was like, we had a convoy, like a little caravan of like 4 or 5 cars, SUVs to the airport. They get through the chaos of the airport, and a couple airports run. There's 2 kind of sides to it. There's your commercial airlines where like Turkish Air, Emirates kind of lands and takes off from, and then there's like this private sector where it's like military flights and UN flights and like private planes and stuff. That's run by the British. So my dad gets there. The British troops are like, all right, well, we're out. Peace out. Like literally within like the hour, they rounded up. They took off. And the British troops hired the security detail, like these mercenary, like security details to like protect them at the time. And once the British left, the security detail was like, yo, who's going to pay us? Then they were like now like arguing with the airport and like, yo, who's going to pay us? And like a fight breaks out between these guys, and like my dad's like, all right, well, now we're like stuck in a bunker at the airport. All that footage came out of everyone running on the tarmac. Yeah. So he was like, no flights are coming in, no flights are coming out. So he was like, we're just stuck here for like who knows how long. 12 hours go by and they're still stuck at the airport. Meanwhile, the next morning, the Taliban roll up to his work site, and they knock on the door and they're like, all right, well, who's in charge here? And one of the guys who works there was like, oh, Engineer Baluch. Fucking snitch. He was like, yeah, Baluch is the guy who's looking over this. And he was like, all right, what are you guys all about? Like, what are you guys doing here? And he was like, oh, it's a historical restoration site. It's an old army, blah, blah, blah. We're just doing construction. We're excavating old things and like basically fossils of now, of like old military like stuff. And the guy's like, okay, he did a tour of the place and he gave him a note and he was like, you guys are good. No one will bother you guys. And here's on this note is like my number. So any other Talibs come around, like let them know that you've been like inspected and you passed or not passed, but like you're good. And if anyone bothers you, call this number. Because right now the Taliban are trying to go through this like very PR.
Like rebranding.
Yeah, they're trying
where
to do
the new
this,
and improved.
yeah, it's like this
Taliban.
whole propaganda PR thing where they're like, yeah, they're trying to win people over now through like soft power.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, we're so kind, we're nice, we're
Sure.
gentle.
Yeah.
There's a soft side of
Yeah, I've
us.
seen it.
So the guy calls my dad and he was like, oh, and he sends him a picture of this note. And so a little while goes on and the airport's in chaos. My dad's like, if these guys are like running Afghanistan now, like, fuck it, let's call them, see what they can do. So my dad calls him. He's like, hey, yeah, we got your number. You're at our work site and we're stuck here at the airport. What can you guys do? And they're like, yeah, we'll send some guys to get you out of there. The Taliban roll up and the Taliban look around like, yeah, okay, what's the deal? Yeah, we're stuck. Okay, give us your truck and we're out. And they like stole the van, like an SUV, and they left. My dad's like, what? And he calls him. He's like, hey, yeah, the crew that you just sent us just robbed us. The fuck?
Yeah.
And the guys are like, the Talibs are like, all right, we'll send another unit. Another like group of Taliban come up, and now they're fighting with the guys who stole the van. They're like, who said you could steal this car? Let's speak to the commander of your group and blah, blah, blah. Now these guys are fighting. My dad's like, what the fuck? And he had to Karen it and called the Taliban again. He's like, yo, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? These guys are fighting now. We're still stuck at the airport. And then they're like, all right, you know what? We will come down personally and get you guys out. So like a group of like Taliban guys come in and my dad and his staff, they're like escort them to a hotel. And he was like, throughout the way, he's like, yeah, some of the guys were trying to speak English to me. And they're like, yeah, Ashraf Ghani is a donkey and America is stupid. And my dad's like, yeah, totally, man. Yeah.
We got enough gas in the tank?
Yeah,
totally.
fucking, don't point that at me, like,
right.
So he was like, yeah, they're trying to be real, like, buddy and whatever. And he was like, they get to the hotel and when they're at the hotel, they're like, all right, well, let us know if you need anything. And they go off into like the courtyard of the hotel and they start taking selfies. And my dad's like, what happened? But no, I was able, like a couple days later, U.S. Embassy was like, stay put and we'll notify you when it's like your turn to evacuate. So he was one of the fortunate ones. He was able to like take off and go. But it's crazy because like a lot of the people I've met over the years there that have been working, journalists, all these individuals who have incredible careers and lives there, they're just like, I'm seeing their Instagram stories. Everyone's just leaving one by one. And I'm just like, oh man, like, it's like a country's best and brightest are leaving because a lot of them were like on some list, of like people we need to check and people we need to keep an eye on or targets or whatever. So my dad literally landed like yesterday in Virginia and he was like, all right, I'm back. I'm good. I'm like, whew, what a relief. But man, it's been, yeah, the first few days, like I was just constantly refreshing Twitter, just checking, just to see like people on the ground. There's some great journalists that are on the ground that are in Afghan that I love. Just like their stories are like 10 minutes of them just like day in the life in Kabul and just walking around and stuff.
Do you know what they are? Can you name them?
Yeah. The guy's name, one is Khyber Khan. He's like, I love, he's this great filmmaker that works for Afghan, one of the news stations. His handle is Khyber, Khyber, Khan, Khaan. His stuff is good. There's this other guy, Ali Latifi. He's good. There's a few more like these other photographers. They had to leave. Fatima Husseini and Roya Hedari, I'm butchering her name maybe. They left. There's a few more. There's a lot more. I just can't think remember their handles off the top. But
and that's for Instagram or Twitter or what?
Instagram, Instagram. Because it's like live what you see. But yeah, that was an interesting.
What's your dad's take on it? And does he plan on going back, or is it just too volatile? Like you gotta let the dust settle to see what it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, him and a lot of like family on the ground. It's just kind of like I have like some family members that are just like like day-to-day guys. Like they have no positions of government, no positions of power. No, they're not on anyone's target. So they're kind of just resuming life, but then they're like with these guys haven't studied fucking like economics and finance and trade, and he was like, there's this whole banking system, the economy's crashing, so they're continuing to go to work, but there isn't like the whole economic like struggle right now is what's collapsing. Like banks are closed, IMF's not giving money to, or like allowing like funds into Afghanistan. So there's just a lot of that. And then, but my dad was like, he'll wait it out like a month or two. And he was like, if things just are slightly stable, I'll head back. But now there's a resistance growing up beginning again in the north. There's this former anti-Soviet fighter, Ahmad Shah Massoud, back in like the 70s, 80s, and then he was fighting against the Taliban in the 90s. His son has like kind of stepped into his shoes, and him and with the former vice president, which he is now, I guess, the president of Afghanistan, have like aligned forces to take back the country. So they're kind of going like city by city and reclaiming it with like a lot of like the Afghan army. So I don't know, man, it's interesting. But one thing that like amazed me was the work that the not even just Afghan Americans, like the Afghan diaspora did, like immediately jumped to their feet, and they're pushing for policy change. They're doing refugee resettlement programs. They're helping expedite the visa processes. They're like raising funds to evacuate. Like the amount of work that they've been able to do has been in like a week and a half insane,